This video is brought to you by something awesome. More about them later in the video. So as I'm sure you guys saw by now, we recently got one of the first officially released cast photos for DC's upcoming Shazam sequel, Fury of the Gods, featuring the main adult cast on set in their updated superhero costumes, and holy shit, those updated suits look amazing. I mean, yeah, the first movie's costumes were fine enough, but let's be honest, they were definitely a little too cartoonish, right? I don't know if it was the way the material was shot, or if it was just the ridiculous level of padding throwing everything off and making everybody's proportions look insane, but these new suits definitely look like a huge upgrade to me. But as cool as they are, they're actually not the biggest piece of news this cast photo brought to the table. So you remember how all the kids in the Shazam family had adult actors playing their transformed characters during the final fight against Dr. Sivana and the 7 Deadly Sins in the first movie? Well, forget all that, because apparently the sequel just up and dropped one of the adults and got one of the kids to play their part instead.
Motherfucker, are you out of your damn mind?
Okay, fine, it's not that dramatic, but for real, look at this. Michelle Borth, the actress who played the Mary Marvel transformation in the first movie, was apparently dropped at some point in the production process in favor of putting Mary's civilian actress, Grace Fulton, in the suit instead. And there are so many people left wondering what the hell is going on here. And honestly, looking at this and wondering, how does that make any sense, really isn't that bad a question. Yeah, I get that the actress is a few years older now, but she still looks the same as she did in the first movie, like a soon-to-be freshman at college. And like I said earlier, everybody, including Grace, had an adult actor playing their transformed roles in the last movie. I mean, it's not like that movie is supposed to be set decades before this one or something. And isn't a big part of the wizard Shazam's transformation process the fact that you get older when you turn into a superhero anyway? Like, why is the younger version of the character also playing the older version in this movie? Overall, I guess what I'm saying is that, regardless of whether or not Michelle Borth ended up appearing in Fury of the Gods, you'd think the Mary character would still look a good deal older whenever she turns into a superhero. Right?
Wrong!
Yeah, no. If you actually stop and think about it for a minute, turns out there's actually 2 possibilities we can use to explain this one away, with both of them having some pretty deep roots in the comics. But before I get into all that though, here's just a quick message from today's sponsor, Skillshare. Hey there world, Mr. America here, and I'm here to tell you all about this awesome service, Skillshare. It's the top place for any patriot to learn all sorts of new skills that can take you to the next level in just about any field. Baking, design and animation, and so much more. Hell, we may have passed by one of my favorite holidays, Independence Day, but the Freedom Party never stops in my house, so why not show your patriotic side by taking a woodworking class or making some of these decorative stars? They make a great conversation starter for the family at home, and they're absolutely perfect for punching aliens in the face.
Welcome to Earth.
Can't get much more American than punching some random thing with a solid block of pure freedom. Best of all, if you're ready to get started and be one of the first 1,000 people to sign up with the link in the description, you can even get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare Premium. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and do your patriotic duty by checking out Skillshare today. And while you're doing that, let's get back into the video. Now to be fair, traditionally, we usually see kids being affected by Shazam's magic. So when one of these guys shouts Shazam, they end up becoming a large adult superhero basically. And if that's all you've really seen from these characters, then yeah, it might make sense thinking that's how the wizard spell works. However, that's not entirely accurate. What exactly the wizard does to Billy in order to turn him into Shazam, or Captain Marvel if you're an awesome OG nerd like yours truly, is kinda up in the air, meaning the exact wording in the moment changes depending on the writer. But as of 2013's Shazam #1, during DC's New 52 revamp, one of the runs in the comics that heavily influenced the movie by the way, Billy is specifically told by the wizard after his first transformation that the spell simply allowed him to reach his full potential. What exactly that means is left up to the reader to work out, since the wizard didn't exactly elaborate on it any more than that, but we can at least speculate it has something to do with your physical body. Like maybe your Shazam form is just what you look like in your physical prime, or once you reach a certain age, or something like that. It would make a lot more sense out of why we've seen more than a few times that adults who inherit the powers of Shazam don't look radically different compared to what they normally look like. For example, we've seen Billy's dad, C.C. Batson, inheriting the powers of Shazam a few different times in the comics. And each time he still looks like he usually does, just, more superhuman. Actually, both of Billy's parents ended up being Captain Marvels of their own thanks to some timeline fuckery, and the two of them look exactly the same as they usually do. This idea was also carried over to a few non-canon storylines too. In issue number 5 of DC's Dead Planet, we see Cassandra Cain gaining the powers of Captain Marvel after a trip to the Rock of Eternity in order to help fend off the rabid Freddie Freeman. And aside from the usual Shazamification of her usual Batgirl uniform, there's not all that much of a difference compared to how she usually looks either. Probably the best known example of this though is from back in 1996, during the widely acclaimed Kingdom Come story. For a majority of the story, Lex Luthor was parading around an assistant most of the other characters thought was actually Captain Marvel, as part of a plan to help keep his allies in line, with Batman later revealing that they've actually been dealing with a grown-up Billy Batson the entire time instead. So, okay fine, that's how things play out in the comics, but how does this apply to the movie exactly? Well, you gotta remember, Mary was the oldest one out of all the foster siblings in that movie, with her interviewing and applying to colleges like Caltech before Billy even showed up at the house for the first time.
Sorry, Mary, hi. College interview.
So regardless of whether or not there's an actual age cutoff on this spell, or maybe if the magic's influenced by something more mental, like Mary really truly believes she's fully aged up into an adult or something like that, either way, it still makes way more sense out of how she could still look like herself when she transforms in Fury of the Gods. But to be fair, this age/physical prime thing hasn't been the only explanation in the comics. Granted, it is a little shaky since I don't think the writers have used this explanation in a while, but it's still possible that Mary's new form could possibly be more of like an idealized mental state, and not necessarily an age thing. Back in the pages of The Power of Shazam, we found out that Billy's transformation into Captain Marvel didn't actually age him up or just pop him into a generic adult body, but rather turned him into what he pictured was the idealized version of what a hero looked like, which in this case turned out to be his dad. Remember how I mentioned earlier that CC didn't exactly look all that different as a superhero compared to how he usually does? Well, take a look at him side by side with Billy in his Captain Marvel persona.
What the hell is even that?
They both look exactly the same, right? Hell, I think Billy was even able to pose as his own uncle at one point. Like, that's how much he looks like his dad when he's out and about as a superhero. This is later reinforced by the fact that his sister Mary, Billy and Mary are directly related in this run by the way, could transform into her own superhero like usual, but one that looks suspiciously similar to her mom Marilyn. Just in case it's still a bit unclear, the fact that this is what Billy and Mary turn into isn't because this is what they're going to look like when they get older, but because both of them were influenced by their parents and saw them as heroes before Billy ever met some creepy old guy in the subway that one time. And as it turns out, we even see it with one of the other kids in the Marvel family too. In The Power of Shazam issue number 7, Billy and Mary transfer some of their power to Freddy after he's been hurt by the supervillain Captain Nazi, but after shouting his magic word and transforming for the first time, we see that Freddy still looks like a kid. The wizard ends up explaining that it's because, subconsciously, Freddy's pick for his ideal form, what he saw as his absolute peak, was just himself before the whole Captain Nazi thing. Turns out even Billy and Mary had the option to keep looking like kids if they wanted to, too. So if this is the route that the Fury of the Gods writers want to go, then we could look at this as maybe a sign that Mary's finally decided that her ideal look for crime fighting is just herself. There's a metaphor in there somewhere, I just know it. So yeah, long story short, there are a couple of ways to explain away why Mary looks like herself after getting Shazamified. Having said all that though, my personal pick to explain this one away is the aged up theory I mentioned earlier. I mean, yeah, I like that the kids can pick their idealized forms, since it would make recasting later down the road a lot easier, but at the same time, if Mary could have picked what all she looked like, and just now decided to change it up, then why wouldn't she have done that in the last movie? It just makes way more sense to me that part of the wizard's magic ages these guys up to their physical peak, and now that Mary's an adult, that part of it doesn't really apply to her anymore. Of course, I could be totally wrong, and none of this is really going to matter in the story anyway, so who knows. Either way, I guess we'll find out when Shazam! Fury of the Gods finally pops up in theaters in 2023. But anyways guys, that's my take on why Mary Marvel's still gonna look like her younger self in the upcoming Shazam! Fury of the Gods movie. If you guys agreed with anything I said in this video, or if you have your own thoughts you want to throw out there, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and click that like button, and if you're new, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button too. I've also got links to my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. You should probably check those out too. And if you want to see more of my content, then you can click the link to my last video. It's right there in the middle of your screen. Alright, and I will see you all next time.